Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make Filth on acid style techno. We're going to be talking about sound design and how to make the sounds, but also a little bit about arrangement and how to do the build up and the drop and all that kind of stuff. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is available at the top of the description on my Bandcamp, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Let's dive in. Alright, so this is the project that you heard in the intro. The first thing up here would be the kick. So this is a rumble kick. That's the style of kick you're typically going to have with this type of techno track. And it's being made with 3 layers. So we have our main kick, which you can see is completely dry. And then this is just a sample that I made. We have this punch layer, which is essentially it's that same exact kick, but then what's happening here is it's going through actually a multi-band distortion. We can see we're distorting the highs, or we're distorting, there's the highs. And we're distorting the mids. And you can see we're doing these two independently because we kind of want to do different distortions on each one, and then we're not distorting the lows. And so it's a really great way to do this because, you want to do kind of different distortions on each band. Like, for example, on the highs, you want that, clicky, bright distortion. But then if you had that on the highs and the lows at the same time, which actually I'm going to turn that up a little bit. If we just put this on everything, you can see it's going to mess up the low end there. And so it's kind of the same deal here. We want this very mid-rangey distortion in the mids. That's just going to mess everything up if we put it on everything. So that's why we do that. And then after that, we just high pass it. And then that's what makes it fit over the main kick. But then also, another tip here is I have a really short reverb on. And you can hear that just gives the kick a little bit of space now. And something a little bit stereo, which is going to make it stand out nicely in the mix. Then the last layer in the kick is the rumble. So the way this one is being made is it is the same kick that we've been using for all the kick layers, which is something to keep in mind. Typically if you're working with a kick, probably just want to choose one kick and use that to create all the layers rather than, having 3 different samples here. But yeah, so it's the main kick, just doing straight 16th notes, and then it's going to a bit of reverb, which you can see it's this really short reverb, and I've turned up the reflect and the diffuse knobs, so it's very full sounding. And then it's going into this bass amp here. And then we're low passing it. And that's essentially how you create this rumble. And it's a really great way to do it because it makes a very steady rumble. And then I just sidechain into the main kick. And then on the group of those, you can see we don't have any saturation or any compression or anything like that. So if you already have a really solid kick and you have 3 really good layers, or it could even be 2, you don't necessarily need that punch layer. It just adds nicely to it. But if you have these good sounding layers already playing, you don't need a whole lot of extra stuff to tie them together. It's just going to sound good just laying these 3 layers out. And then for the effects that we do have on here though, mostly it's just these 2. So this high pass filter, which just comes in to transition it, building up there. And in these parts, you can also see I've got automation on the cutoff. And then the low pass filter is just for the break. Just to make it a bit deeper. So then when we get that full kick here in the drop, it's a lot more impactful, which is a really good arrangement tip. And then the last thing on here is this EQ, and this is just cutting at 36 Hertz actually. So the reason for this is because we actually can't really hear anything lower than 20 Hertz, but we can feel it. So if you have that stuff in your track, it's going to kind of mess up the low end. Again, not in terms of what you're hearing, it's just going to feel really weird when you play it on club speakers when you have all these weird rumbly frequencies. So I've cut this here, and I cut it a little bit higher than that. You can see, it's at 36 Hertz, but it's just a matter of kind of cleaning things up a little bit. You know, this makes the bass a little bit higher, a little bit, like, I don't want to say brighter sounding, but you'll see what I mean. Here's without it. And then with it. So yeah, just getting rid of those, like, really, really, like, just deep lows that we wouldn't really even be hearing anyway. And just cleaning everything up. Then we have this rolling bass. So this is just playing one note, just G sharp. That's the key that we're in, G sharp minor. And yeah, this just sits underneath the kick. Yeah, it gives it like that extra movement. This is really popular with the tracks on this label, I've noticed. So this is being made with operator. What's happening is it's not actually FM. You can see that we have this FM algorithm going where you can see, yeah, so these are just playing side by side. And then what's happening is we have a square wave, a saw wave, and then actually a triangle wave as well. As you can hear, that actually fills out that like low mid-range really nicely and makes it sound a lot fatter and more full. You can see the amp envelopes are like that. And it's just going into a low-pass filter with a bit of a sine shaper, and we have an envelope on that. And then we have this pitch envelope. And so I'll turn off all the effects, and you can hear what it sounds like just dry coming out of the synth. So that's the dry sound. So you gotta keep in mind, the effects are actually pretty important for this one, because you can't really just get this, like, you know, very, like, tight sounding, like that kind of bass doesn't really come without the effects. So the first thing here is going to be really important are going to be the stereo effects. So we have chorus and reverb on this. And yeah, that's going to come like a long way in terms of just making it feel very like alive. Because if we turn these off, it feels really like just flat. With that little bit of space on the sound, just adds like a nice layer of detail to it. And the key here is just like keeping it really short. Like you can see I have the size and the K time down on the reverb. Then we have some OTT. So here's without that. And then with it. So it's not actually on that much, you know, we just have it 25%. But this adds that nice kind of more like, just very processed feeling. Like that crunchy mids and highs kind of sound. You can see I've got the time all the way up on that. Then we have this auto pan, which just makes it kind of bounce off the kick like that. And then I have this high pass filter as well as this low pass. The low pass is just to bring it in the break. And the high pass, you can see, so that keeps it in the drop so that it's not going to get in the way of the kick. Because if we turn that off, you can hear it gets in the way of the kick. But yeah, so that's just making it so it doesn't get in the way of the kick. But then in the break, you can see when we don't have the low end from the kick, it actually allows us to kind of bring in some nice bass. From this, like if I turn this off, a lot's actually missing. So that bass in the break is really important. And then after that we have the lead. So it's a really, really simple melody. We're in the key of G sharp, so I'm just using A, B, and then G sharp. So you get that like very uneasy feeling. And it's also like kind of a polyrhythm. The way that it's repeating, where it's like the way the rhythm is constantly changing like that. It's adding a lot of movement to the track. For the sound with this one, this is made with wavetable. It's just a saw wave going into a low pass filter, which has an envelope on it. And then I have this unison on the noise setting here. So that's giving it kind of a cool texture. Very like hardcore, like ravey. The other thing you'll notice is there's lots of automation on this. So it's just constantly moving around, you know. It's never in the same place twice. It's always like building and closing. And like here, for example, it'll build up and then start back over. Like, you know, just keeping it really dynamic, I think, is really important with this lead. Then we just have some echo. You can see that's on eighth notes. We have a bit of drum bus as well to fatten the sound up. I have this auto pan, which is just like with the rolling bass, making it kind of bounce off the kick and giving it a bit of rhythm in the break as well. Then we just have a high pass. I have this new washout here, which is just like a high pass filter with a bit of reverb and some EQing, and then it gets compressed, but when you turn this knob, it's all turning like that. So yeah, I just have that on there. I believe that was a rack that I went and tweaked to make it kind of work like this. And then finally, this low pass filter to just bring it in at the beginning of the break. And that's it for the lead. Then we have these stabs. So I think that these can be broken down into a few different categories. We have our respaces like these. We have the little stab sounds, like the bass stabs, like this one. And that one. And then we have just sort of our little background effects and sounds like that, like these. And then within each of these groups, you can hear there's call and response happening, where okay, for example, with those last ones, you could hear the claps and that reverse vocal. Here, you have the call and response between this FM dunk and then this little bass stab. And then here, it's just a call and response between the respaces. So yeah, having kind of the different sets of the stabs like this, but then essentially they're all within those sets talking to each other. That's really what you want, and that's how this is all gonna work. So the respaces are pretty simple. You can see these are just made. We have a saw wave with a bunch of unison, a little bit of reverb, some drum bus, high pass, auto pan, and then just an EQ. And then for the first one, you can see pretty much the same patch actually, really, really similar. However, this one, yeah, you can see it's that same reverb, same auto pan, high pass. This one has a little bit of multi-band distortion though, actually, just like I was talking about with the kick. And it's actually really similar to the one that's on the kick too. So you can see low end, no distortion, mid-range is getting distorted a lot, but again, we wouldn't want to put this distortion on everything. It just sounds really good in the mid-range. And the highs are just kind of getting crunched a little bit with that wave shaper. And yeah, it just creates a really nice sound there with the respace for these more stabby basses. So this first one here is just FM. You can see it's 3 sine waves. And then what really makes it is the filter. If I turn that off. So it's all about the shaper here. That's what's really going to make this into this really fat, hard-hitting sound. And then finally, I just have some reverb on that one. And then on the second one, so it's actually 2 layers. So it's this FM layer, which is the growl. And then just this little respace saw wave layer, which kind of fills out the low end. And then those are just going through some reverb and an EQ. And then for these sounds, like I said, it's just this reverse vocal. And then just some little claps in there. But yeah, and I like to put all these stabs in a group together. It's a nice way to kind of keep it all under one roof. And also I can show you guys, very easily how these are all kind of in the same group, sonically speaking. And those are just going through just a low pass filter, which just goes in and out. And then this high pass filter, which just comes on for the break. Then we have this ARP. So it's actually using the same scale that the lead was using, which is just that G sharp, A, and B. Really, really simple. So what's happening with this one is we're using the arpeggiator. You can see it's on 16th notes, and then I have the steps up to 1, so it's adding an extra octave. And making it go up more, if we put it. That's if we just have it on the default setting. For the sound here, it's made using analog. We have 2 saw waves and a bit of noise going into a low pass filter, which has a little envelope on it. You can see the amp envelope is like that, so that filter. And yeah, then we just have a bit of vibrato and some unison, and then that's really it for inside of analog. But after that, we just have a bit of chorus and some echo. And then we have this low pass filter, which you can see, this is really dynamic. It's just like I was saying with the lead, with these types of sounds, you want something to be constantly moving. It's never in the same place twice, as you can see and hear. And then finally, we just have an auto pan. to give it that same like sidechain sort of feel. And yeah, then we have our percussion. So you can see we have like a standard ride. You know, this one's just... It's kind of a different feel. Like, you know, a lot of times people have their ride like... But to just have the ride go... It's kind of a different groove there with the hi-hats. So I was playing with that here. And then we have in the hi-hats, so essentially it's this main hi-hat, which is 3 layers, so it's this one for the highs, this one for that like mid-range, and then this one just adds a bit of punch. So yeah, we've got those 3 to really make like a full and fat sounding hi-hat. And then we also have this little hi-hat and this shaker, which you can see the processing on those as well. And then on the group of hi-hats, all there is just a low-pass filter, which just brings them in the break, because you don't usually want these to just be like full force then. And then also just this EQ8 here, which is just boosting the high end a little to make it a little bit sharper. And yeah, then after that, that concludes all of the sort of main elements. So like when you're making a track, I would start with everything up here that I just highlighted, and then everything down here is kind of like gonna come after that, because all this stuff down here, you can see it's just like the little background effects, you know, like we have like this little noise stab, just like a little that comes in pretty frequently. There's also this here. There's like a little clap. You can also hear the snare. We have like this noise, which you can see that's just a bit of white noise with a bandpass filter. And then we're just using that like in the break to build up, and also at the end of every 16 bars here. There's also like this clap in the break. There's this whole build up here, which is like this snare and this vocal atmosphere. So that's just like, you know, this little snare. We're just doing straight 16th notes. And then we have that reverb automate up at the end. I've used kind of a cool technique here with the snare as well that I've learned recently, which is having this auto pan on here. So if your snare is just going, you know, a good way to add some movement to it is just to have that auto pan, because if we turn that off, see, we just get a straight but if we put it on, it's like like it's kind of like building a little bit more that way. And yeah, it's a simple way to add some nice movement. And now also it adds a bit of movement to that reverb too. For the vocal atmosphere, so that's just like the sample. And then we just have it building up in volume the whole time. And that noise that you already saw. And the last thing that I think I haven't shown you yet here is this little bass stab. And so that just comes in the break. This is made with FM, so it's just 3 sine waves here. You can see we have that envelope, so that's what's creating the like. And then we also have a low pass filter with the hard shaper on it. And then we're moving that filter with the LFO. And that just comes, you know, to kind of just add like a nice like little background element, you know, very subtle, something that's easy to overlook, but it's going to make a big difference in the background of your track. There's also that little crash there at the beginning of the build. And yeah, so that is going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, the entire template, everything that you saw in this video is available at the top of the description on my Bandcamp. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you to everybody who picks this up. It really helps support me. Plus, you get this great template. You know, you can just turn this into a track and start sending it to labels, or at least have a template to kind of work from and see how it's going to look when you do make your own tracks. So yeah, thank you so much for the support, everybody. Every sale of this really helps keep me going, and thank you as well for all the support on the videos, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another video.